This is a new episode of Richard Talks About. Today, I will tell you about the neighbor. John had just moved into a small, cozy house on the outskirts of a quiet town. He was a man in his early 30s with short, dark hair and sharp green eyes that reflected a mix of curiosity and kindness. After a long day of unpacking, he settled onto his worn-out couch, ready to relax in his new home. It was his first night there when he heard a soft knock on the door. The sound startled him, as the neighborhood had been eerily silent. Cautiously, he opened the door and found a woman standing there. She looked to be in her late 20s, with long, disheveled brown hair and deep, expressive eyes that carried a hint of fear. Her face was pale, and a bruise was visible on her cheek. "Please, can you help me?" she asked in a trembling voice. "My husband, he hit me, and I don't feel safe at home. Could I stay here for the night?" John hesitated for a moment, but couldn't bring himself to say no. "Of course," he replied. "You can sleep on the couch. Come in." The woman gave him a grateful smile and stepped inside. She introduced herself as Emily, a neighbor from a few houses down. That night, John lay awake, troubled by her situation. But when he woke up the next morning, Emily was gone. The second night, just as John was about to head to bed, he heard another knock. This time, he opened the door more quickly, already suspecting who it might be. Emily stood there again, her face showing fresh bruises. "Please," she begged. "I don't know where else to go." John nodded and let her in. "You can stay," he said gently. Emily curled up on the couch, and John watched her as she fell asleep. He felt a deep sense of responsibility and anger toward the man who had hurt her. The next morning, just like before, she was gone when he woke up. This strange pattern repeated for 3 more nights. Emily would arrive late, bruised and frightened, and by morning, she would vanish without a trace. John grew increasingly disturbed by the situation. Finally, on the 5th day, John decided he had to do something. He went to the local police station to report Emily's husband. The officer, an older man with gray hair and a serious expression, asked John to describe the woman. As John spoke, the officer's face grew grim. "Wait here," the officer said, disappearing into another room. A few moments later, he returned with a photo. "Is this her?" the officer asked, handing the picture to John. John froze. It was Emily. Her long brown hair, her expressive eyes, but the photo looked old and worn. "Yes, that's her," John replied. "She's my neighbor." The officer let out a heavy sigh. "That's impossible," he said. "Emily died a year ago. Her husband killed her right in their home. He was arrested and sentenced to life in prison." John's heart raced as the officer explained the tragic story. Emily had tried to escape her abusive husband, but he had found her and killed her in a fit of rage. Feeling a cold chill run through him, John left the station and walked back home in a daze. That night, John couldn't sleep. He kept replaying the officer's words in his mind. At midnight, as he sat on his bed, the familiar knock came again. He slowly opened the door to see Emily standing there, her face sad and her bruises darker than before. "Why are you here?" John whispered. "I don't know," she replied softly. "I just feel drawn to this place, like it's the only place I'm safe." John invited her in, but this time, he decided to confront her about what he had learned. "Emily," he said gently, "I went to the police. They told me you're not alive." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "I know," she whispered. "I just can't move on. I feel trapped, scared, as if I'm still running from him." Determined to help her find peace, John asked, "How can I help you?" "I need closure," Emily said. "He took my life, but I can't let him take my soul." John nodded, realizing what he needed to do. He spent the next day gathering information about her case and her husband's trial. That evening, John sat by the couch where Emily always appeared. He spoke aloud, knowing she could hear him. "Emily," he said, "you are safe now. He can't hurt you anymore. You don't need to keep running. Emily appeared, her expression softening. "Thank you, John," she said, her voice barely audible. "I think I can finally rest." As she faded away, a sense of warmth filled the room. For the first time in days, John felt at peace. This was Richard Talks About. See you in the next episode.
Ah!